Welcome to this video trip report for taking a sweet boat down the middle fork of the Salmon River. These are things I do. I share some video that I take on trips and just sort of share my thoughts about different lines, about how the sweet boat runs. And so I'm just gonna share some of my thinking over the top of a lot of video. And this first rapid is Sulphur Slide. I only took video of what I think are the most difficult rapids, the bigger known rapids in the middle fork. There's a lot more spots that are challenging, but these are the ones that I think are the hardest. At this level, Sulphur Slide was pretty straightforward. There's a lot of debate on where to enter it. I entered it on the left at the top and took the traditional low water line, which was a lot of fun, and you can see it worked out pretty well. As the water drops, Sulphur Slide's not too bad. There's places you can get stuck in there for sure, but the next rapid, Lower Sulphur, is really the problem. And I've struggled here a lot at low water, so it's not that bad at this level. But this move right here, getting back to the right, is so hard. And there's some rocks right there on the left. At lower water, I've been super stuck in the past, so I have a lot of respect for this rapid and the sweep. And for me at low water, especially low, when I say low water, I mean lower than this flow. This was 2.4 feet I put in. I don't know, like 2.42 or something. You can see I just let go of my sweep on there too. That's a thing that happens and a great way to get hurt. Sometimes it bangs a rock in the back. But at this level, again, this Lower Sulphur is pretty easy, sub 2 feet. To me, it's one of the hardest rapids on the river. This is the new Ram's Horn. You can see as I'm coming, I'd be running the rapid right now if this rock slide hadn't happened. That's the rock slide on the left that dammed up the previous rapid. So, you know, again, we would be done with the traditional Ram's Horn that was there in the past. And now we're running this new thing. There were a lot of boats getting popped somewhere in here, between here and Velvet. It wasn't really clear where. I think that isn't happening anymore. I couldn't tell you for sure, but from what I heard, there's not as many boats popping. This is a super straightforward line here for rafts, for the speedboat. This isn't a big deal. There's plenty of deep water. But the rock slide that came down is new rock, and it is sharp. So the rock, the pop boats could have come from just hitting sharp rocks with speed. And so to be careful, I would just stay in the deep water, which I thought was pretty easy. And it's always fun running new rapids in the sweep, things you haven't done for the first time. The next big challenge, though, and this is one of the most difficult on the run, is Hell's Half Mile here. And there's a really big move from right to left here at the beginning that causes sweep boat drivers a lot of anxiety. And you hear me say this over and over, especially at low water. At this level, it's pretty straightforward, but as the water drops, this move is brutal. Getting right to left. As I turn the corner in the entrance, I see another sweep boat stuck in that spot. You can see the sweep down there if you look carefully. And I'm trying to decide right now, do I get myself hung up on a rock, which will make my line super difficult? Or is there room to get left of the sweep boat? So I'm running this, doing this, and my mind is going crazy. I don't want to get stuck here, so I see there's room to go left, and I take a really aggressive attack so that I don't, bump him and make his day worse. Like, I can make this way worse for him, and so I'm being thoughtful about that. But I felt pretty good about that line, being able to get left. I felt very, very lucky that I made it, because if I had smashed into him, I could have made problems for both of us. Again, my only solution there would have been to get the sweep stuck. Once I saw him, get the sweep stuck on a rock. But these boats depend on having momentum. They have to build up speed. If the boat stops in the current and I'm moving the speed of the current, this boat is useless. I can't do anything. You have to build momentum. So entering a rapid, it takes like 10 seconds for you to get up to its speed, which allows it to track where you want to go. So anytime you scrub speed in a rapid, you lose your ability to maneuver the boat. So in the top, if I had stopped, it would have been really hard for me to, if I stuck on a rock, to build up the speed I needed to make a maneuver. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I'm not sure I can totally explain how these boats work. I just know from experience. This is the Spike Creek blowout above Velvet. The one that happened, you can see on the left. They're pretty impressive blowouts. And I feel very fortunate that like all the trees are gone and we can run the river without having to fly everything in. And again, maybe some boats are popping here. My only advice, if you're worried about that, is try to stay in the deep water. Again, some of these rocks might be sharp. There might be debris from something else. Who knows? but you definitely want to stay in the deep water here. And that's what I'm trying to do. Try not to hit rocks. Again, I don't want to tear a boat. I heard about some sweet boats tearing in here, so I'm being overcautious. This entrance, I'm gonna call this Rapid Spike Creek. You can call this part of Velvet. We don't really have nomenclature for this stuff yet. But what I'm in right now, I'm gonna call Spike Creek. And there's a little tiny thing here that I'm gonna now call it Velvet. Like there's a little flat water here. You can see I'm coming down. I'm calling that Spike Creek, and then right here, I'm calling it Velvet. The sweet boat, the same sweet boat, while I was scouting, ran down and got perched. It's pretty bad perch. I wouldn't call it a wrap because the tube wasn't underwater. But I saw this left line. I felt pretty comfortable I could get left of this boat without hitting it and making this problem worse. And yeah, I was worried this sweet boat was gonna be here for hours. And you know, there was the first boat down this rapid of the day. There's whatever 50 boats upstream, so I at least wanted to get the sweep out of the way. So there's a little rock under the water. I got my back tube stuck on it. It wasn't a big deal. I wasn't nervous here at all. And I put a video up separately that shows this in real time. It's not sped up if you want to watch all the things I do. But when you get stuck like this in the sweep, you just have to yard on the sweeps. And it was inching off. Every time I did this, one of these big pulls, it inched off. But I was getting tired. And my friend Jonas, who drove another sweep boat, who was behind me, he was scouting while I was coming down. We planned to help each other out like this. He just got a rope on me and just helped pull a little bit more. And the little bit of pulling, that back tube came off. I was able to get left of the sweep. Getting back right here was tough, actually. Like, for a second, I mean, I didn't have my speed, so this is the thing. Like, I wasn't up to speed yet, so it's really hard to make maneuvers when you don't have the thing at full speed. So I really had a hard time getting to the right. It worked out. I was a little worried there for a second. This is, when we picture Velvet Falls, this is what we picture. This drop right here. So either the whole thing is Velvet Falls, or that's the entrance to Velvet, and this is Velvet proper. Somebody's going to have to figure out the nomenclature. I'm using the nomenclature Spike Creek and then Velvet, and just considering Velvet the whole long rapid instead of this just one part of it. That's just what I'm doing temporarily while somebody figures it out. And that main drop of Velvet seems to be getting easier. So I think, although some of the stuff upstream is harder, the main drop I think is washed out some more. I then want to eddy out here because Jonas was going to run his sweep down and I want to give him a hand. And so one of the hardest things of these boats is stopping them. It's not the rapids, it's just eddying out. It's brutal. And it takes a lot of skill and a lot of strength sometimes to stop them. They're just heavy boats with tons of momentum, and they don't act like normal boats. And at this point, I've gotten in the eddy, so my momentum's slowing down. But just getting this boat to the side of the shore is tough. And again, I feel like I need to, because I promised Jonas I'd go up there and be there for him if he needs help. And that's what sweet boat drivers do. We talk in the morning. You know, we pay attention to each other. Hey, I'm scared about this rapid. Will you wait for me? I'm by myself. Jonas is by himself. So anything we're nervous about, we try to stay together. We share advice about lines, about where to go in rapids. There is a lot of inter-sweep boat communication happening. So next up is the chutes. This one is historically pretty brutal in the sweep. I normally would go right, but my friend told me to try this left line today. But I normally would go, at this point, be shooting hard right and staying on the right side. I keep hearing about this left line, and so I thought I'd give it a try. I did it once at 1.5 feet in the sweep, and it was the only line. So I thought I'd try to get at normal levels. I'm not going to recommend it. It was fine, but I think the key is, and I'm not sure, I'm still learning the line, is right here, tucking behind that rock and going right now. I think planning to go right there, I think, is the secret. What I did worked fine, but it's a very difficult fine line right here, going left of the rock and then getting back right. Again, I went on that rock, I lost my speed, and so now I don't really have control of the boat. The boat is right now kind of doing its own thing. Luckily, I'm not something I have to avoid. for the next 10 seconds, I'm building the speed, and at some point I'm going faster than the current. I'm not sure how it works. I don't understand the mechanism. Some of you are probably smarter than me. It just does. And once I'm at speed, I can start making maneuvers pretty well. But I'm pretty confident that these boats, they do move faster than the top current. And I think they catch the currents under the water, which are faster, that causes them to go faster than the current at the top of the river. I don't know. I think it's pretty complicated too. I think they just do what they do, and I don't try to overthink it. But scrubbing speed, we call that scrubbing speed, like hitting something and slowing down. Once you do that, you definitely lose control of the boat. Here we are at lower chutes. This one is also brutal. Even at this level, the water is so spread out, it's so shallow. There's tons of places to get stuck here. There is a very detailed line through here that I only run the sweep once a year, so I kind of forget it sometimes and I get hung up. I got lucky today. But as the water drops, this one is brutal. And I've been stuck in here many times. It's not like, this is an example of, this isn't like, I mean, most of you would say, oh, this is class 1+, maybe 2 plus, I don't know. But in a sweep boat, this one is brutal. And I'm working as hard here as I am in any other rapid. And again, the consequence of a mistake isn't bad. It's just, you know, and it's bad for me because I get super stuck. I'm going to spend 10 minutes pushing and pulling the boat. You know, I'm not going to flip a kayak and hit my head or get beat down in a hole. But difficulty level, I mean, I'm going to call this in a sweep boat, I'm going to call this a class 4 at this level. Difficulty, really difficult maneuver. The chutes, I'm going to say this is honestly on par with the upper chutes, which is also a pretty difficult rapid. But luckily I made it. As it drops, if I took that same line with the same amount of weight in the boat, I wouldn't have made it. And that just means me getting out of the boat, pushing and pulling, and it's just a ton of work. You can see here I'm up to speed now. The next biggest rapids are the Powerhouse rapids. They're divided into upper, middle, and lower. I used to just think it was upper and lower, and I called what is now called the middle the lower. So I've been wrong for a long time. I didn't realize there was actually a lower below the middle. Anyway, pretty straightforward. I think in all boats at this level. You know, there's some things to miss, and you kind of got to read water, but this upper part is pretty straightforward. It's called Powerhouse because somewhere here on the right there used to be an old Powerhouse, and I think there's still some remnants of it. Not here, I think down a little bit here, up on that cliff, there was an old Powerhouse, and yeah, just a great rapid. Now finishing up the upper part. There's a little bit of slack water here to kind of get a break, get your senses. And now we're heading into a middle Powerhouse, which I used to call this lower, so I don't know, maybe they changed it or maybe I was just always wrong. But the hardest move is right here. You kind of need to know what you're getting into. There's a couple hard moves in there. I think middle's the toughest. There's a really tough line here between some rocks. Again, at this level, not too bad, but if you get stuck on that rock on the right there, it'd be pretty bad news. You'd be stuck for a while. And at the bottom of Middle Powerhouse, there's a big wall on the right side. And so when I've run through before, just scrape that wall and put holes in the cowling cover. The cowling is that piece that's vertically standing up that bags leaning against. It keeps splashes from coming in. It gives you like a little railing. And so the cowling is a metal thing, and it's covered by the cowling cover, which is a piece of high below. And if you bash into this wall, you can bend the cowling, the metal piece, which is a pain to fix, and rip the cowling cover, which is again a pain to fix. And it's embarrassing. People are like, oh, looks like you hit the wall at the bottom of Powerhouse. And so I've done that many times. I've bashed into this wall and beat it up pretty bad. And so the whole run, all I'm thinking about is how do I not bash this wall? And you know, you have to get left, but not too far left, because you'll bounce on something and hit you right. It's a very fine line through here. And then once you get in here, you just gotta like muscle the boat over as best you can to not hit that wall. So I feel like I did pretty well. I'm pretty happy with my line. I wasn't even close. And then I catch this eddy here, which catching eddies in a sweep boat is kind of a bummer. Like, it's hard to get out of them. So I didn't intend to catch this eddy. I just all I cared about was like getting to the left. But once you're in an eddy, it's actually a lot of work to move that boat back in the current, which is fine. I didn't hit the wall, but it's tough. And then getting the boat swung around is a better work too. This is what's called lower Powerhouse. I always just called this, I don't know, I didn't have a name for it. But I've had this sweep boat at lower flow stuck pretty bad here on the right. And there's a big rock down there, like 5.5 maybe, this and higher level is a massive hole. Pretty easy to miss, but kind of sneaks up on you. So I've been stuck. I'm trying to avoid that rock on the left, so I've been pushed pretty far right before. And I've been stuck right in here somewhere. Pretty bad in a sweep before, so I'm very cautious, especially by myself. I don't have anybody help me today get the boat unstuck. So I'm pretty happy to be through the Powerhouse Rapids. Honestly, to be past Velvet and Hell's Half Mile is quite a relief. As those are kind of the hardest rapids. I mean, not the hardest. This trip, I think Velvet and Hell's Half Mile and Pistol were the ones I was most nervous about. So here we are, we're on day 2. There's nothing else to note. There's definitely some challenging places, but there's nothing of note. Here I am entering Lake Creek. This was formed in 2006 when Lake Creek on the right had a massive mudslide, blocked the river, put a bunch of logs in Pistol. Now that was a long time ago, that was 17 years ago. But it was quite the ordeal back when that happened. On the left side there, on the bench, there were tons of people camped because everybody who's on the river above there couldn't keep going, so they just pulled out and camped. There was a massive camp of both commercial and private. We had trips in the water when I worked for a different company that I used to run, and we had to hike them down a few miles at Pistol Ranch and fly them out like their trip was over. So it was quite the hassle, and it formed this new rapid, and it formed this part too. This part's all new. This wasn't here before 2006, and this little shallow mess has been changing every year, and it's a very tight line to not get stuck, both in a sweep and a raft. Like, as the water drops, it's a pain in a raft too. So right through here is a little tricky. Again, I'm super happy not to get stuck. I'm by myself, paying very close attention to these small spots because I really don't want to get out by myself and push. I have to. It's part of the job, but it's exhausting. This job is exhausting enough without having to get out and put everything you have into pushing this big old boat. So that's Lake Creek. This is the bottom of it, and the next rapid is Pistol. And there's been a few issues at Pistol this year. I've heard stories, and so stories about rapids and how difficult they are kind of go around the guiding community, especially the sweep community. So I know of a couple from this year. I only do this once a year. I'm not like the preeminent expert on sweep boat driving. I don't practice every week, and so this can beat me up pretty bad. The common line here is there's a right side entrance you want to do, and if you can do it. And I'm looking at it, and it's too shallow over there. I probably could have got to the right, which is like 30 feet to the right of me right now. If I got to the right, this is a much easier line. It looks too shallow. I don't really want to get stuck in here. All that on the right looks too shallow, but I was watching it carefully because I wanted to go that way. I'm choosing to go the left side of the left run, and as soon as the right side closes off, this left side line is difficult because once you go through here, so there is a right side line there too. It's a little different. And there's a can opener rock in the middle. See the water kind of going over right now. If you put your sweep over the top of that, it's going to tear the floor. But now just all my momentum's going to the right. I have to fight it so hard. to get left. I'm doing the best I can, but it's just really difficult to get left. And it turns out fine. This isn't what I envisioned when I entered the rapid, but I stopped right there in some slack water above those rocks. Lucky didn't get stuck on those. And the story I heard, what I know about, is a sweep boat breaking a sweep blade and bending an arm on that rock right there. But it's a lot slower water now, so I kind of caught this eddy and came through. So not the cleanest line, but honestly, like at this level, coming with all that speed, I'm not sure what to do better. I talked to the other two sweep boat drivers because I'm always curious, you know, what did you do differently, how to go, and they both did the same thing. Just took that left side, and the other sweep boat driver's coming down right now, so I thought I'd take some photos of him coming down. But both said the same thing, like, you know, you kind of have to go, just take that momentum and kill it the best you can. So the next Rapids note of the Tappan series. This is always a lot of fun. This is 2 days later, right? This is Pistol is day 2. This is day 4. Yeah, so this is 2 days later. There's nothing to note day 3 in the sweep. Tappan 1 here is pretty straightforward. It's just scenic. It's beautiful here. I try to there's that rock on the bottom of the right, that big rock. You know, I'm just trying to stay left. There's no magic here. With the water drops, it gets a little harder, but this one's never really a big problem. The next two Tappans, Tappan Falls and what's now called Cove Creek, can be a problem, and you definitely want to be in the right place. This float's pretty straightforward, but when you go over this drop, the water can rip the sweep arms out of your hands. You notice I put the left one down low. I used to just go to the ground and hold them, but I have a better sense of what to do. But the water's so powerful there that if it grabs a sweep blade, these blades are, whatever, they're 5 feet long. If the water grabs a blade, it's going to rip it out of your hand and maybe come back and hit you. So, you know, like all that rapid is in a sweep boat to me is just set up really well, you know, get in the right place, and then just manage those sweep blades so that they don't catch some weird water and come and smack you, because that wouldn't be a lot of fun. So we're actually the next rapids, right? That was Tappan Falls. I get the names confused. This is now, I think, in the book called Tappan 2, and the names of the Tappans, there's so many different names. I'm just going to go with the Matt Lydecker book because I think, I don't know, I like him and I think he has a good sense of what's happening. But I've heard this called all kinds of different things. Tappan 2 used to be a really hard rapid in the sweep. You have to go around this bend. So we're going around, down. This is really fun. That rock you see on the right, you'd have to cut just on the left side of it to get back left so you don't get stuck in some shallows, and then cut back right. But the next rapid, Cove Creek, formed somewhere, I don't know, like 2011 or something. Again, so you have to get left of those shallows on the left, but not too far left because that rock wall used to be exposed and current would go into it. But the water's backed up to here, so once you're here, you're basically in a lake. Again, this used to be a really hard rapid in the sweep, but now it's just the end of it's afloat. And now you're kind of floating through this little lake caused by the Cove Creek landslide that dammed the river. This is just all flat water. And Cove Creek is one of the most difficult rapids on the run too, that, you know, causes a lot of anxiety because you can get really stuck in here. At higher water, they were going far left in the sweep, but it's too low to do that. But at this level, it's a pretty straightforward line. You just kind of have to get left. And there's a rock down there you have to get back to the right of. So there's a couple hazards here. One, there's that hole just downstream to the right. You don't want to go over that. So you want to get left, but then you want to get back right. I've seen sweep boats smack into that big rock on the left. And so you want to get back, and I'm pretty happy with that line. And after this is, you know, a little bit of flat water, and then what is called Tappan 4 in Matt Lydecker's book. And again, like, nomenclature is difficult. There's a lot of different names for things. Some people, I don't know, I'm not going to get into it, but Cove Creek, some people call it Tappan 3. I call it Cove Creek, which would make this Tappan 4. After this little bit of flat water. There's a few lines in Tappan 4. Now we're getting up to it. I'm glad I'm speaking this ahead. There's a few lines here. You kind of go down the middle. I really like challenging myself on this shallow left line. I think it's really interesting, and this is good practice for low water. But there are lines kind of down the middle, and look at that water. It's so beautiful. How clear, you see how clear it is over the rocks. It's just stunning. And making that move just feels so good. I really enjoy doing that move through there. So that's a Tappan series. A great relief once that's done. We're coming up to Haystack and Bernard here, which this is the same day. So this is kind of the final, big test. Like a lot of the rapids, at 2-4, it's pretty smooth. Everything's covered. This isn't a big deal. Sub 2 feet. This entrance here can get sticky. This entrance used to be worse for sweeps, and it's gotten better over the years. But getting through the entrance right here can be challenging. Again, today really easy. You can go right or left. Right is the easiest. Left is interesting, but I'm not going to challenge myself today. I could try to get left. In rafts, I like to go left because it makes the rapid more interesting. But honestly, it's a freight train down the right side. You just kind of point down there, and you could mess this up for sure. Imagine, if you got the sweep sideways and broached here sideways, that would be terrible. But it's pretty straightforward, and it sets you up really nicely for this right side of Bernard, which is a really fun line. It feels consequential. So this is Bernard. This Bernard, same thing. This flooded, I don't know, 2000 something, 15 years ago. Bernard Creek Blue. Haystack used to be longer and harder, and it dammed up the bottom of Haystack with this new rapid. And this little move through here on the right side is really interesting, and more interesting as the water drops. It's kind of terrifying going into it, but it works out fine. But again, this is a new rapid. I can't remember the year for me. If I was to guess, I'd say, I don't know, 2007. But somebody who knows the answer or can look in a book and tell me. It's been like this for a while, but Haystack used to go farther down, and it was really, really tough before Bernard happened. And Bernard backing up the water kind of took the teeth out of it. It's the same way Cove Creek took the teeth out of Tappan 2, what Matt Lydiger calls Tappan 2. Now we're getting to Earthquake Rock and the Jack Creek Rapids. Most people are going to go right here. Go right of Earthquake Rock. I just really like this aggressive move left of Earthquake Rock. I'm not sure I'd recommend this move for everybody. I don't know. I think it's a great move. It doesn't look like it's going to go. It looks terrifying. But you just have to drive through that lateral right there. You can do this in a ducky, in an oar boat, a paddle boat. If you drive through that lateral and have momentum going to the left, it's not that. It's pretty easy, as you can see. But most people will take the right side turn there. I think that, for me, practicing that is good practice for pistol. Being able to cut those really tight lines like that. So I like practicing that. And then this Jack Creek Canyon, just non-stop fun waves and things. Beautiful, nice section. And after this, all the night 4 camps start popping up. Little Pines around the corner, and Driftwood, and the Grassies, and Survey, and Woolard, and just a bunch of classic Class 4 rapids. Whether you're launching at Indian or Boundary, this is the beginning of Class 4 or Night 4 camps. And this is the last Jack Creek Rapid. And the Little Pine camp is straight ahead of me. Wonderful camp. And so here we are the next day. This is day 5 of the trip. And we're heading into Waterfall Creek Rapid. I don't have a very good line here. At low water, you go left. I was trying to go right. And I feel like I'm pointed to the right. I'm driving right. Pretty proud of myself right now. Still pointed to the right. But it takes me center. And luckily, these rocks were... I can't believe how center I was, considering I was pointed that far to the right. I basically go over the rocks, the little hole here at the bottom. Again, not my cleanest line. And you don't want to be sideways. I think the number 1 rule of driving sweeps is don't get sideways. I get sideways. So, it wasn't my cleanest line. Yeah, surprisingly. I look back at like, what did you just do to me? That was kind of messy. That wasn't my favorite line. Here we are at Wall Creek. I call this Porcupine because that's what it used to be called. but I'm trying to go with the new nomenclature, which is Wall Creek Rapid. This is my favorite part of the Middle Fork. This rapid's fun. I want to be really careful to get left and not hit that wall on the right. You can smash into that, cause some problems in both the raft and the kayak and the sweep. But I love this view. To me, this is the iconic view of the Middle Fork. And I think this canyon, to me, this is the iconic canyon in the Middle Fork. And it's kind of non-stop-ish rapids. And so not everybody takes a second to look up to just appreciate how beautiful it is. But I always take a minute here and just appreciate that I'm here in this beautiful place while I'm floating down the river. This spot makes me happy. Now we're heading into Redside and Weber. Again, stunningly beautiful. I feel like sometimes I'm too focused on the rapids here to look up and be like, wow, that rock wall is amazing. Anyway, this is Redside. I think of this as like an S-turn and you're trying to cut the dollar sign. So I'm just trying to make a straight line through here. Stay close to that left rock, close to this right rock. Again, I see this as an S-turn, dollar sign. And that's CV's rock on the left. If you smack that with your sweep, that's unpleasant. So I'm trying hard to not smack that. At this level, pretty easy. At lower levels, I'll go left of that rock because it's really hard to make the dollar sign, but not too bad. And this fun little canyon through here, heading into Weber. Weber's a pretty solid rapid for most boats, but the sweep boat does really well here. There's just, you're just going through some big holes. You have a big boat, and you're just going through a couple of holes and some waves. So Weber generally isn't something I stress out about. I mean, definitely not. I'm taking it lightly because you can, a wave or a hole could like grab your sweep arm and pull it out of your hand, and then you're out of control. But you can keep the sweep arms in your hand and pay attention. Compared to other stuff, it's pretty straightforward, but also really fun. Like this is one of them that isn't hard necessarily, but making these moves through big waves and around holes is just really, really fun. Next up is Mist Falls Rapid. I wouldn't say at this level it's pretty straightforward. I really like this rapid, and again, I like the scenery here, so I included it. Mist Falls, we just passed Mist Falls on the right. This is just a few minutes past Weber. I just really like this rapid. I've been learning at lower levels. There's a far left line. It's really cool, but I just really enjoy this one. Again, pretty straightforward, but beautiful, fun, no tricks. We're camped down at Tumble, so these are the last two rapids of the day, Upper Cliffside and Lower Cliffside. And this is historically one of the most difficult rapids in the sweep because you can get thrown into that cliff, the cliffside, it's named Cliffside Rapid after the cliff, and just trash the sweep. It can be terrible. I've had great runs here the past few years. I haven't really thought about it much, and so I'm pretty calm right now and casual about it. But I thought this was tough. At this level, to me, this is one of the tougher rapids on the run because you can't cheat really far right, and it's really pushy against the wall. So I'm fighting to get as right as I can. I'm using my body, my strength, pointing to the right. I'm pulling it to the right, and to me, these are hard pulls I'm doing, and it's kind of sending me towards that wall. And so, I'm close. But imagine just like running in that wall and just cheese gratering down the side. It can really beat up a sweep. I don't think you flip off that wall. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I'll probably flip next time. But yeah, that was a tough one at this level. I have to say, at lower levels and higher levels, I think it's a little easier. And then next is Lower Cliffside. I love this rapid. You kind of have to know the line. You can't sort of enter this one and figure it out. you really want to enter left, and you want to be up against the left cliff here in the entrance. So you can see I'm pushing hard to get left, and I'm just going to stay really close to this cliffside. There's a lot of messy stuff in the middle of this rapid that you want to avoid. So I really like this one because you can come screaming by this cliff, and the whole world opens up downstream. You say, oh, there's a bunch more stuff. You can see how close I come. You want to come pretty close. In a raft too. Same thing in a raft. Come around this corner, and you see the rest of the rapid here. At this level, this stuff isn't that big. Like I've said a bunch of times, at low water, it's really messy. And we're camped at Tumble, which is this bench on the right. It's a beautiful camp. I love this camp. Carrying all the stuff up to that bench is exhausting. So it's not my favorite camp because of all the work and how hard it is, but once the work's done, it's a great camp. And here I am trying to get the boat to shore. This is hard, like I said earlier, below Velvet. Getting this boat to shore, and that was an easy one, but getting the boat to shore is one of the most difficult things of running the sweep. So next day, this is our last day, day 6. My battery died as I entered rubber, so no video of rubber. You can make up a story that I had a terrible line, and that's why it's not there. But battery died. And here I'm in Hancock. I think Hancock's the most underrated and forgotten rapid on the entire Middle Fork. Every time I'm above it, I'm like, oh yeah, this one. I love this rapid. And in any craft, ducky, kayak, sup. This is a great sup rapid. Really fun in a sup. But that's sort of the little entrance at high water. Those waves are big. I've seen a boat almost flip in those waves at high water. And then through here, it just kind of goes. And there's several lines. There's several ways to do this. I have the way I like to do it. So there's a few more rapids after Hancock, but the ones of consequence are Devil's Tooth right here, which again is kind of, you just make a line, a straight line through here. I'm trying to just cut straight. It's kind of an S-turn, and there's a pretty straightforward line, not a big deal. But it can be problematic. There's some things that can mess with you for sure, but not a big deal. The next one is House of Rocks, which there's a lot of ways to run House of Rocks. There's a sieve on the right, so I'm very cautious of the sieve on the right that House of Rocks. And that tree that's kind of bent over, that's my marker for the beginning of House of Rocks. And there's 3 ways to go. This left line is conservative. When this far left line is in, I always take it. I was worried it wouldn't be in, but I think the lower end, although the flow it put in was 2.4, I think the lower end on our trip felt higher. This felt more like a 2.8, 3-foot trip to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in the 2s that left line starts going away. But it was easy. It's going to be great for the next few weeks, and it saves you from some more complicated, messy lines down the middle, and there's a really interesting low water line left of center. But that's House of Rocks. And the last one, so I'm done. We're done with the Middle Fork. We met the main salmon. This is Kramer on the main salmon. It's big waves. It's formed in 2003, I believe. It's changing every year. So it used to be way bigger, but it's still pretty big. It's pretty juicy and just good, clean fun. This is a whole different type of rapid. We just did all these Middle Fork rapids, and then you get to do like a Grand Canyon style big wave rapid. It's a really nice end of the trip. And for those of you that don't know, the takeout is just like a mile downstream. So at this point, we're done. There's cars, there's a road along the river here, so there's always cars. Not always cars, but sometimes cars pulled over taking photos. There's a private group I was kind of running with at the end, chatting with. Just kind of watched them come down. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some out of it. See you next time.